Okay, good. All right.
Is that YouTube?
No, I'm gonna go live on YouTube now.
Okay.
All right. I think we're live on YouTube. If we are, please let us know how the audio is.
We shall be. Inshallah. Inshallah. Inshallah.
Let's see.
Testing. Inshallah. 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 MashaAllah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Okay, guys, let us know how the audio is.
Alhamdulillah.
Oh, stop it. Ali.
Okay.
Somebody.
Armin's getting triggered.
No, because
this is what you call a macro aggression.
We're gonna. Okay, audio is fine.
We are live.
Okay, great. We're live. Fantastic. All right, let's start.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Okay, so should I just start?
Yeah, just start.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. My name is Ali Rizvi. I'm joining you from a little west of the Atlantic, and Armin Navabi is joining you from west of the Pacific, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or can I get more specific? Or not gonna specific Pacific?
Oh my god! All right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's just I'm thinking out loud. It's late over here, and I'm high. No, I'm not. I'm not really high. It's not. Okay. So, we had a picture in this thing of Abu Bakr Al Baghdadi. That picture that they posted of him with the red beard.
Yes.
He's got a little bit of red in his beard, and he looks very old. He looks very old. Did you know how old he was?
How old was he? I don't know.
He was like 48. He's only like 4 years older than me.
Oh wow!
But he looks like How old does he look? You wouldn't have believed that. He looks like he's fucking 70 years old or something.
He's been under a lot of stress.
He's been under a lot of stress. There's a lot happening.
Yeah.
That'll age you, right? When you have like a whole bunch of people. Okay, so
he didn't want to die.
Yeah,
like
so
he wasn't one of those jihadists that, like, you know, a lot of them pretend, you know, maybe a lot of the lower level people are like, yeah, I want to die, I want to be a martyr, but he really didn't want to die. Like, this was not, like, you know, like maybe bin Laden was looking forward to dying, but he was not looking forward to dying, given all the I mean, I don't know. It can never.
I feel like, I don't know. I felt like he had more to do. But he was like, okay, well, death is upon. The thing is, he took 3 of his kids there. So this guy has something like 12 kids or 14 kids. I don't remember how many kids he's got, but it's more than 10. Okay, and then he took 3 of them. And this is my question. The 3 that he picked to go with him, were they the ones that were his least favorite or his favorite?
Oh, no.
Yeah, that is the burning question.
Sad.
No, it's good. I know it's very sad, but
it's too soon, man. Okay.
It's not that. It's just that everybody wonders. This is a very serious question. Like, what would you do? You're a martyr. You're about to go into heaven. The problem is, it's gonna suck because you're gonna be chased by dogs and all this stuff. And you're going. You're about to die, and you've got to take 3 kids.
If you have an explosive vest with you, why would you take, you know, and you're about to blow yourself up? Why would you have 3 kids next to you? Like, I don't understand that. That was sad. Anyways,
that's my question. Do you think it was like a human shields thing? Maybe. Okay, well, if I have the kids with me, then they're not going to mess with me. They're going to try to save the kids because they're Americans, which is weird because then you're acknowledging.
Let's get into stuff that we know.
There's some morality that drives them.
Let's get into stuff that we know. Okay, so
the stuff we don't know is the most interesting. That's what this whole.
Okay, but I have so much stuff that I think I know, and I'm hoping that you disagree with it, so that it becomes more interesting. I think we're gonna have a lot of disagreements today, so it's gonna be fun.
Okay, so B just saying they're getting a tiny bit of buffering. You mean overall for the whole thing?
It's fine. I had to move because.
Do you wanna record this call anyway, just in case?
No, it's fine because I have a lower internet connection today. That's why, but it's fine. Is the audio fine? As long as the audio is fine, the video, unless the.
Yeah, the audio is fine. But the thing is, because it's broadcasting from your internet,
yes,
right?
Yes. Don't worry. It's fine.
YouTube.
It's fine.
The overall end product will be okay.
I think so. The thing is that as long as the audio is fine, the low quality in the video, I don't care, because my internet speed is usually very good. Today I had to move, so I have lower speed internet. But as long as you know.
Okay. I'm going to start recording anyway, just in case. I'm gonna record it from my
Oh
end.
my God,
Okay.
Ali, can we get started, please? I really
Yeah,
need.
we're gonna start again because I'm just kind of nervous about this. But anyway, once we're
Okay.
good, we're good.
All right, get started.
Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody to another episode of Secular Jihadists for Muslim Enlightenment. This is Ali. My name is Ali Rizvi. I'm coming to you from west of the Atlantic, and Armin is coming to you from the west of the Pacific. In any case, we're here, and we are going to talk about the Islamic State Caliph Abu Bakr Al Baghdadi. He's a very good friend of Armin's for a long time. They had a lot of debates. Armin was the devil's advocate in all of them, obviously. Okay, he wasn't. But Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi died recently. He's let me read the headline from a major U.S. newspaper. It says austere religious scholar. Did you see that?
Yeah,
The
what the
austere
hell was up
religious
with
scholar?
that? That's the Washington Post, wasn't it?
That was a Washington Post.
What is
I
up
thought
with
it was
that
great.
title?
I
mean,
I
like
thought it was great.
I like the fact that they're admitting this whole thing is Islamic, and the guy that started
Yes.
ISIS knew Islam and everything. But I don't think that was their
Yes.
intention to say that. I don't think that was their
Probably wasn't.
That probably wasn't. But what was? I can't think of the reason.
The thing is, it was, I mean, they didn't paint it properly. Eventually, they called him an extremist, which is actually less accurate because he wasn't an extremist. He was more of a purist. But he was a PhD in Quranic recitation. He was a PhD. He was an Islamic scholar.
I agree.
And he was
with
pretty
you that
austere.
I agree with you that it's good that they frame, message, that was the reason. That's the end result. Even though that was not the intention, to send a message like, look, this is this guy that is a religious, the guy that is a terrorist, that is the leader of the world's greatest, terrorist organization, knew his Islam inside and out. But that was not their intention. I'm more interested to know why. Like, this backfired on them huge. Why did they do that?
Who did that?
Who did that? And
Just
why?
I'm dying to know who did that.
Okay.
And who decided that? Because initially it was something about the terrorist leader. It was like, the terrorist killed. And then someone changed it to austere religious scholar dies.
Right.
And I'm dying to know how that happened. Like, someone should do an expose and really dive down and do an investigation just for the hell of it. Right. Unfortunately, the Washington Post is one of the organizations that does those things. Right. So, well, I guess we're never going to know.
All right, so let's get into the meat of the discussion. First of all, today we're going to talk about ISIS and about the Kurds in Northern Syria and Turkey, and Trump's decision to pull out of Northern Syria. And these seem to be two separate topics, but they're related. They're very related, okay? And I don't know if you want to start from the ISIS angle, or if you want to start from the Kurdish angle and then meet in the middle. I don't know. What do you want to do?
I actually want to talk about the Kurds later on. I think we're going to come into it anyway.
Okay.
But I want to talk about the Baghdadi killing first and the significance of it. What difference does it make? This is, I think, is what's...
Because a lot of people, a lot of narratives I've seen is that a lot of people are trying to make it seem like this was not significant, right? Which could be
it's
true.
very significant.
Yeah, but I think the reason why some people are downplaying why this was not significant is because it happened under Trump, right? So because of a lot of people don't want to give Trump any credit for anything, right? They are very motivated to make this a very insignificant killing, right? Whether or not that is true that it's insignificant or not is secondary. But I think there's huge motivation behind
the motivation. Yeah, I think it's interesting because when Obama killed bin Laden, a lot of the conservatives were saying, "Well, no, this wasn't Obama. This was actually the special forces, and we should thank them. And Obama shouldn't get the credit." And the guy who was saying that the most was Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Right. There's a whole barrage of his tweets that says that, oh yeah, it wasn't him, it was our special forces, it was our blah 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 who killed bin Laden, so don't credit Obama. Now in this case, what's happening is the same sort of liberals who chastise Trump for that are kind of saying that we don't want to give Trump credit. So of course Trump deserves credit, and of course
I don't
forces
know. I
deserve
don't think.
credit,
No, I don't
and
think either one
Baghdadi
of.
killing.
I don't think either one of them
No,
deserves credit. These
so
decisions.
here's
These decisions are not made
let
by
me
Trump or Obama. These decisions are made somewhere
well
else.
let me yeah, that's right. But I want to caveat this with something,
Okay.
and what I want to caveat is that there are reports out, right, from the military that was actually closing in on Abu Bakr Al Baghdadi. Trump knew that they were closing in, and when he pulled his forces out of Syria, that actually compromised the mission. And the people who were actually working on this, they had thought that that could potentially mess up them going in to get Baghdadi. So in a way, Trump, even though he is credited with getting him, he almost screwed up the whole mission. Right. So
It
those
could
are other
also
reports
be
that came out.
argued that maybe they knew where he is for a while, and now that they were moving out, they thought like this is the time that we need to pull the trigger. I don't know, but let's see. But what?
But that's not how it happened, though.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a anyway. The point is that I think that there is a so you're absolutely right. There's two sides to this. One is should Trump get credit, and what is the motivation? People are not giving him direct credit, whatever. But the second thing is that is this really significant? And what I would go back to at the Osama bin Laden killing, when he died, everybody thought, oh, this is it. This is the end of Al Qaeda. They're going to get super demoralized. And what rose out of the ashes of Al Qaeda? ISIS, right?
Mm.
And then they caused havoc for years afterwards. So in that sense, looked in that context, we don't know how significant this is. I mean, it is weird. ISIS is at a low point right now. They've had fewer people than they've ever had before. They have virtually none of the land that they had when they started out. Their leadership has been decapitated. And yes, terrorism, Islamic terrorism is down everywhere, even in Pakistan, even in the overall Muslim world. Terrorism is down. The terrorist attacks are down. But it's only when you get very, very complacent that something else rises up. So it's, you
Okay,
never
so
know.
it's true that the nature of the Caliphate, the Islamic State, has changed. It has for a while now, right? It wasn't a physical, territorial caliphate anymore. It went to being a more traditional terrorist organization with the heavy loss of a land. It became a more of a franchise, a cyber franchise. Where, I mean, that was already something that they were before as well, where people could just buy into the franchise, like in different countries, right? And just become ISIS just by just accepting the branding, and all of a sudden just your colors changes and now you're ISIS, right? But then recently, after losing so much land, that became all that they were. They weren't the Islamic. The state part of the Islamic State was missing anymore, right? Like the whole point of being an Islamic State is now you're a state. That's how you. That's the appeal of the IS was Islamic State was the fact that they own land and they were holding a territory. So when you don't hold a territory anymore, how could you pretend to be a state anymore? And the main marketing, the main PR of Islamic State was lost, right? So a lot of people saying with that being lost, and also given how Baghdadi really, really wanted to make sure that he is not captured, he had reduced communication with ISIS, with all his members and all his commanders, so that to reduce the chances of him getting caught, right? To be able to do that, he had to make a lot of these different groups of ISIS to be autonomous, right? To be able to run operations by themselves, so that he doesn't get caught. And because he did that, a lot of people are arguing, well, given that ISIS operations were running on autonomously without much of his, input, therefore taking him out, that's not that big of a deal. Another reason why people say it's not that big of a deal is like, look, we took out bin Laden, they quickly replaced him with another leader, and Al Qaeda is still here. So same thing with ISIS, right? They're gonna replace this guy. So these are the arguments for why killing him is not a big deal. But I still think, even after saying all of that, I still think it's a major deal, because for two reasons. First, it's a major, you know, it's a major blowback against all their operations. Even if he is, the ISIS groups on the ground were autonomous, and even though he just had to sign off, agree with like general strategies rather than being able to manage everything, it's still a major blowback, because one element of the Islamic State was like, look, we have land, we have a state, we're running a state, but another element was that we have a Khalif. Okay, we have a Khalif, like branding Abu Bakr as their Khalif, as their leader. All these people, uh, pledging loyalty to him, taking all that loyalty from one guy, and now transferring that to this new guy that probably nobody has heard of, and trying to, you're gonna a lot of these loyalty is not going to just get transferred like, oh, you were loyal to that guy, now be loyal to this guy. It's not going to be, it's not going to, all of
No,
that is
it's
not
not.
just going to funnel
It's a
through.
cult of personality.
No, a lot of it is going to get lost, and that's one reason why this is a major blow. Another reason why it's a major blow is it's very demoralizing to the member, right? They might pretend that this is not going to be a big deal to them, but they're gonna, yeah, this is the United States winning against you. Like, you are losing. You are losing, and they were losing, and this is just a cherry on top to all the uh, the fact, to the message that is out there, that everybody accepts that ISIS is losing, and it's hard to recruit. People don't want to be on the losing side. When ISIS was winning and gaining all territory, it was very easy to gain members because people wanted to be on the winning side. But now, when you're losing, it's going to be, and when your leader is just being taken out like that, it's really going to have a major impact on your growing and your marketing and your PR strategy, right? So it is. So I give you three reasons why it might be argued that it's not a big deal, but also two reasons why it would be. It's a major deal.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I don't think ISIS is gonna be back as ISIS. If anything, it's like when Al Qaeda, ISIS rose out of Al Qaeda in Iraq, right? In the same way, if there is anything else that shows up, it's gonna probably show up as a completely different entity, and at some point something probably will. But I don't know. I feel like Al Qaeda was diminished, ISIS is kind of diminished. Islamic terrorism is kind of down everywhere. This sort of secular thing in Islam, all the stuff that we've been working on, Armin, is really becoming more and more normalized every day. I mean, it's amazing to me. I'm just looking at the kind of security I used to get for the talks that I used to do before versus now. It's just it's a very different landscape. I'd cross my fingers, and I know all this stuff can get reversed at any point. But things just kind of feel different. There are a lot of new things that are happening, and like the way that Baghdadi, the way he was killed, is also something that a lot of these things that people had problems with, like the water burial. Remember, they threw Osama bin Laden into the water. They did the same thing with Baghdadi. People were upset about that when they did it to bin Laden. But I think that that's a very powerful kind of thing. It deprives his followers of making a shrine to them, and they're just kind of, it's a very humiliating way to go. I actually feel like when Trump said in his speech that he died whimpering and crying, and like he died like a dog, and all this stuff, it is pretty funny. That was a pretty funny speech that Trump did, but at the same time, I think that the people who listen to the stuff over there, to hear the president say he died whimpering like a dog, they don't deal very well with humiliation, especially since they take what they're doing so seriously.
Right.
So I feel like a lot of that stuff is kind of effective.
Can we actually go
the way that these guys think?
Can we go a little bit back in history, because a lot of people, I think that we shouldn't forget the fact that what led to the rise of ISIS. I think a lot of people, if we if we want to, because I have seen a lot of anti-Trump narrative when it comes to, both the Kurdish situation and also comparing him to Obama when it comes to the message that he just came out. When a lot of people are comparing it to the way that Obama very elegantly came out and said when they when they killed Bin Laden, and comparing it to Trump. And obviously that's all fair because Trump, I don't know, he talks like a child and it's very easy to make fun of him, right? But I do want to go, and it's easy to, Trump makes it very easy for you to make fun of him and ridicule him, and he deserves all of it. But when it comes to the true human cost and lives lost, I think a lot of people just look at how things look, and they look at Obama and he was a very elegant speaker, and and Trump is an idiot, and they don't do the analysis of whose policies led to what, because it was Obama's fault that ISIS grew to become a state to begin. Obama's administration, at least, fault that ISIS grew to be a state to begin with, right?
How?
Well, okay, so both, and this is how these two topics between the Turkey and the whole ISIS situation get connected to each other. A lot of people wrongfully blame Obama for the rise of ISIS for him pulling out of Iraq. But that's not what led to the rise of ISIS. ISIS became a state way before they moved in and took over a whole chunk of Iraq. ISIS became a state back in Syria, right? And ISIS became a state back in Syria mostly, and they were effectively managed to become a state in Syria because of United States and Turkey's obsession over taking out Assad, right? And the fact that the amount of money and the amount of weapons that went into Syria for taking out Assad, for removing Assad, and the amount of destabilization that's caused in Syria, and the amount of territories that opened for ISIS to just come in and take over. That intervention in Syria, that CIA intervention in Syria, that United States intervention in Syria, that Turkey's intervention in Syria, that the funding of Al-Qaeda, groups by the United States and Turkey, the rebranding of groups that were clearly tied to Al-Qaeda, and what also of groups that eventually would have become ISIS as well. They're rebranding them and funding them and weaponizing them, all for the purpose of taking of Assad, is what eventually led to the Islamic State becoming an actual state.
So,
right?
Yeah. Well, so I think that's a little selective. I actually think that So first of all, I'll tell you the stuff I agree with you on. I do think that arming the Syrian rebels and helping them to take out Assad, I think that had a lot to do with ISIS getting strengthened. But the roots of ISIS were with Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. It was Al-Qaeda in Iraq. It actually did start in Iraq. And Iraq was fairly destabilized at the time during the Iraq War. And then after that...
I'm not denying that.
Yeah. So then when it moved into Syria, when the Arab Spring was happening and there was an uprising against Assad, and yes, the U.S. at that time, and Obama was in power, what they did was they thought that Assad was the greater of the two evils. And at that point, they didn't think it was two evils. They thought Assad was the evil person because he killed a total of like 500,000 of his own people, used chemical weapons and everything. So the Free Syrian Army, the Syrian rebels, like all of these other groups, which they considered moderate. And this is how the U.S. always gets itself into shit, by thinking that there are moderate parties in the Middle East that are fighting against their dictators, because these moderate ones are eventually
They weren't
always
even. They didn't
taken
even
over.
moderates. They were actually known ISIS members that were funded by United States, billions of dollars in
Well, there
CIA
were Al
operations.
Qaeda. They were some of them were known to be affiliated with Al Qaeda,
Hmm.
right? So yeah, there were at that time there wasn't ISIS wasn't as big a thing when nobody really knew what ISIS was. It hadn't really taken shape. But eventually, what happened is that these sort of rebel factions
Hmm.
against Assad, they all got taken over, and then ISIS came about. When ISIS came about, they didn't know what to do, because now you had Assad on one side who had killed 500,000 people. You had ISIS on the other side, and nobody knew. They're like, okay, we can't pick a side. Right, so what do we do? Do we get ourselves into this or do we not? Then the thing is that you get involved, you're going to get blamed for it. You leave, you cut and run, and you're going to get blamed for it. So you're in this essentially. I was going to say Iraq and a hard, between a rock and a hard place, and it's a very complicated thing, and where because you never know
But
whose
okay,
side who's
but
on,
no, Ali.
like
But
Assad and Iran, right?
Ali, it was intentionally made complicated by all the rebranding strategies, right? So the
Yeah,
United States, with the help of Turkey, knew it wasn't complicated enough for them not to know what they're doing. They knew
they
that
knew.
they
Yeah.
knew that they were funding Al Qaeda members and also groups that will become the Islamic State. They knew that they were doing that, and one reason why it was made complicated is because they took a lot of these groups and they kind of engineered new groups. They like mixed them. You took a lot of some just a few secular group and you just sprinkle it on top of like a whole jihadist, and now you rebrand it and you give it one name. You come up with 100 different groups, you name them differently, and you act as if they are these separate distinct groups that have nothing to do with each other, and everybody on the
Oh, no, but
ground.
you're not
ho-
acting.
no,
You're not
no,
acting.
but
You actually. You also know that there's out of some of these groups, some of them have sympathies for other groups. Others are actually rivals, so you can play the rivals against each other.
but
But
it
the
wasn't it wasn't
mistake
it wasn't
here,
no, no, it was let me just finish this thought, because some of these groups
yeah.
are just made up names, and the fighters between these groups, sometimes they fought against each other, sometimes the fighters like just they didn't even know which group, like they're just walking between groups as if the groups don't even exist, you know what I mean? Like the groups were just made
Mhm.
up names based on made up by Western countries for the consumption of Western media, so that you don't tell people in the United States that you remember the people that attacked us on 9/11. Yeah, we're using taxpayer money and we're funding them now, right? So that's the whole point of all these rebranding strategies, right? But
Yeah,
all
it's
that
a
money, but all that billions of it was so much money right away. Like I don't, and a lot of American taxpayers don't know this. This was one of the most expensive CIA operations in CIA's history, right? And all of that money and all of those weapons.
so where is this? All of this detail. Where do we know this from?
This is not even disputed. This is everywhere. Okay, but this is not even disputed. But the thing is that it wasn't just the money and all the weapons that went into Syria. It's also the fact that the war against Assad just made all of these territories up for grabs. I agree with you that the conditions for ISIS's ideology was born in Iraq, right? And the problem is that those conditions are still there, right? The whole idea of the Sunni area is now being ruled by Shias, by Iranian-backed Shia militias.
Hmm. Hmm.
The fact that there's still in the Sunni areas, there's still no development, no reconstruction, low political representation for Sunnis. I mean, these protests in Iraq that are happening seem to be not very sectarian, but that could also keep change again, because as soon as the protests become popular, sectarian elements start coming back in. So all those conditions were there before, and even with the removal of al-Baghdadi, those conditions are still there for a new ISIS 2.0 to come in and take advantage of that. But that's the ideological root is there, but the physical the taking of a state, the taking of a territory, that didn't start in Iraq. That started in Syria, right? The state part of the Islamic State was made available to the Islamic State in Syria by the policies of United States in Syria because of their obsession over taking out Assad, which, by the way, they never managed to do. It's so amazing that people think that it's so easy for United States now to go take out.
Well, they wanted.
Well,
Yeah, they can't do that. They wanted to take out Assad because Assad is supported by Iran, and it was that whole thing, that the axis that they wanted to do. But I think I feel like they got more caught up in this, and they got their they got their heads into something that was way more messy than they thought it was. They tried to play
Ali,
a really complicated web.
No, it's the opposite. Their goal was to make it messy and complicated because
Why?
you don't want the American.
No, but Armin, it was messy and complicated.
But they wanted. It's not like, oh, we don't want this to. We thought this is too complicated. They were like, this is not complicated enough. It needs to become more complicated so that so that we don't look like we're funding Al Qaeda, right? This is why they came up with 100 different groups with 100 different names.
I don't know. I feel like that's a little simplistic.
Do you think? They admit to it on record. They even admit to that with the Kurds. The Kurds.
Look,
We have generals admitting on camera, for example, that the YPG. Okay, the YPG, and again, the YPG. I know this is going to give me a lot of hate. But the whole idea of YPG has been romanticized. I agree that the YPG and the Kurds have been betrayed and they've been abandoned and all that, and it shouldn't have been done. But the fact of how secular and how great and how humanistic and how amazing that YPG are, that has been romanticized to a level that is unrealistic in the Western media. Okay?
The women are gorgeous.
Yeah, all of that. The fact that a lot of these women are being taken against their will to the military at a young age, and a lot of them are raped by Kurdish male soldiers and by their generals. All of that is not mentioned, right? The fact that for all the nonsense that Turkey says and all the propaganda that Turkey sends out there, that we shouldn't believe, but there is some truth to the fact that the YPG is tied to the PKK. That is not a lie. The PKK is a terrorist organization recognized by United States and Europe and almost everybody on the planet.
Say what the PKK is. What is the PKK for people who don't know?
So the PKK is a terrorist group, an actual terrorist group in Turkey, which is which is against Turkey, right? The Kurdish terrorist group, right? And these are that have killed a whole bunch of innocent people, right? And everybody sane recognizes the PKK as a terrorist group, right? And a lot of people say the YPG is the Kurdish military group in northern Syria, right? The YPG is what United States has used when United States first tried to use some secular Arab forces in Syria against Assad and ISIS, and that failed miserably. They spent so much money on trying to make their own secular groups in Syria, and it was such a miserable failure that they're like, okay, forget it, we're going to just move on to the Kurds, right? And when they went to the Kurds really felt like this is a great ally to the West because they're secular, they have the same seem to have the same democratic equal rights for men and women, all that good stuff. They're very much against ISIS. They weren't as against Assad as some people pretend to be, for them to be. Like, they became more anti-Assad because Americans pushing them to that position. But the Kurds mostly just wanted to make sure they have their own autonomous region at the north, and their main enemies were ISIS, right? Again, United States' main enemy in Syria was not ISIS, even though a lot of people think that we're in Syria. United States was in Syria because of ISIS. It wasn't the case. United States was in Syria because of Assad. ISIS was a great excuse, and this is why United States didn't want to defeat ISIS too fast, because ISIS was the reason why United States could be in Syria, right? That's why they didn't take them over too fast. Even when they were so close in taking them out completely, they're like, okay, no, let's pause the war against ISIS because we're winning too fast, right? Because they wanted to stay there. But let me just tell you regarding the rebranding strategies, right? So when people talk about, oh, Turkey claims that the YPG is connected to the PKK, okay? But it's not. That's one of their claims that is actually true. That's one of the claims that is actually true. And the United States went to the YPG and said, like, listen, Turkey is our ally. You guys are connected to a terrorist state. We need to rebrand you. And within days, they came like, okay, we're the SDF now. This is the exact same thing that they did with all the Al-Qaeda groups in Syria. They took YPG, they sprinkled a little bit of Arab groups and some other groups on top of it, and they're like, oh, we're the Syrian Democratic Forces now. They do this all the time, Ali. This is not... And they admit that they do this all the time. Because even when they admit it on camera that they do this all the time, the Western media still doesn't care. They're like, oh, we love the Kurds, always like loyalty to the Kurds. And again, I'm not denying that I'm not saying that's a good or bad strategy. I'm just saying put yourself in the position of the Turkish government, right? You have, again, it's for us secularists, for us atheists, it seems like an easy choice. Like Turkey is more and more Islamic regime, and they're very, as you know, they seem to want to bring back the Ottoman Empire. That seems to be their thing. Erdogan is going to fail, but that's what he seems to be trying to do. He keeps using more religious language, more and more as he keeps failing to get.
But that's not the only reason, Armin.
But a lot of people on our side seem to be obviously against Turkey. And look at the YPG. The YPGs seem to be secular, seem to like democracy, women's rights, and all that stuff. So it's easy. Like we're in the side of the Kurds against the Turks.
Armin, I don't. Okay, so here's so. I'll go with you all that. I have two questions for you. Okay, first one is a comment. I don't think that most people who are secularists think that, okay, because Turkey's more Islamic and Erdogan's an Islamic nut job, and the Kurds are more secular, whatever, and they're fighting ISIS. That's why they do. I think they genuinely feel that the Kurds have been targeted both by Turkey and by ISIS. So I'm sure even with the Yazidis, like the Yazidi girls have been sex slaves, they've been raped and everything. We have a lot of sympathy for them. I'm pretty sure the Yazidi community has done terrible stuff to their own girls within their own community, and they've done stupid shit as well. But and just like that, the Kurds probably have their own things. But the Kurds have been under attack from ISIS.
I'm not denying that.
Under attack from.
But these are not mutually. These are not mutually exclusive things.
You're right, but I think all I'm saying is that the reason that there is sympathy for the Kurds, apart from their soldiers being absolutely beautiful, is that they
they use as a marketing strategy. By the way, they know that the Western media eats that up. The fact that they have beautiful women at the front lines, they use that as a marketing strategy. Okay.
Of course, sure, but the thing is that does not mean that doesn't change the bigger thing. I know it's good to look at the.
I understand. I understand that's not what. But let me give you.
But I mean, to say that, okay, put yourself in the position of Turkey, and when you say that, it sounds like you're saying, hey, but what else could Turkey do?
No, okay, no, I'm not saying that. Okay, I will tell you what Turkey has done is I'm against it. Okay, I'm against Turkey moving into Northern Syria. I'm against Turkey. Many things the way that Turkey has treated its Kurdish minority in Turkey, right? I'm against so many things that Turkey has done. But the reason why I wanna give you the other side of things is because nobody else is giving the other side, right? So again, everything I'm saying, just take it with a grain of salt. It might be wrong, but nobody else is telling you the fact that the PKK, okay, the PKK to Turkey is way worse than what ISIS has ever been to the West. Are you paying attention to this?
Yeah, so I was just responding to something on the page, but yeah,
Can you just
I heard what you said.
Yeah, okay, so just focus on what I'm saying because this part is important, okay?
Mhm.
The PKK to Turkey. How many people has ISIS? How many Westerners has ISIS killed? How many do you think has killed?
Well, I mean, that's
No,
another significant difference between
no.
the killing of Bin
Okay,
Laden and the killing of
no,
ISIS.
ISIS.
Is
Okay, so
ISIS
no,
has,
no. Okay,
yeah,
so it has been less than 500.
yeah,
I think, right? Definitely less than 1,000, but
yeah, yeah,
probably
yeah.
less
I
than
mean, all
500.
the attacks in Europe and things like that.
Oh,
It's not like
right.
compared
Okay.
to the scale of the 3,000 plus killed by
Okay,
Al
but how
Qaeda
many?
on just 9/11. It's
Okay,
massive.
okay, but how many
And
people? How many?
also,
Hold
yes, we
on.
know even one death is too many. We know that.
I
But
Yeah,
anyway,
but my
go
point
ahead.
is, how many people has the PKK? How many Turks? How many people in Turkey have been killed because of the PKK?
That I don't know,
Forty
but you
thousand.
do.
40,000.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you have and Turkey. People keep talking about the betrayal of United States betraying the Kurds, right? But not that many people talk about United States betraying Turkey, right? Again, it's hard to say this. A lot of our audience are secular atheists, so they're like, "Wow, Armin is taking the side of Turkey." No, I'm just giving you the other side of a different narrative for you just to consider, right? Turkey has been a NATO ally, right, with a treaties with United States going back 70 years. It's one of the world's top 20 economies. Okay, it's a country that has let United States just put a lot of military nuclear weapons on its soil and have major
Hmm.
operations from Turkey to all these other countries for many years, right? And for all of a sudden for United States to come start f- funding and supporting its major enemy, that is a betrayal of an ally, a bigger ally than the YPG. The YPG is nothing compared to the military might and the country and a major country that Turkey is, a strategic ally that Turkey is, right? So,
Hmm.
strategically, okay. So, with regards to Trump, right? I think strategically it makes sense to go with Turkey over the YPG. And also, it makes sense for the United States to pull its troops out of Syria, not just northern Syria, all of Syria. Okay, but the way that it was, I'm more against the way Trump did it than the fact that he did it. I actually support.
That is
Right.
that's what everybody has said. I mean, even Elizabeth Warren said that when I think Tulsi Gabbard asked her, she's like, what if we're cutting and running out of Syria and everything with the betraying the Kurds, and she's like, look,
No,
I
but
want everybody out, I want all of our soldiers out of everywhere, but it just was not done in the right way. It has to be done in a strategic and a smart way.
see, okay, so before the United States started heavily relying on the Kurds in northern Syria, uh, both United States, again, this is a hypocrisy of Turkey because Turkey is now pointing out that United States is supporting a group that is tied to a terrorist group but Turkey itself with the United States were funding um, Al Qaeda inside Syria against Assad, and they were like, yes, let's rebrand these groups as something else and use it against Assad. And Turkey was like completely on board with that. Like, yeah, let's do it, United States. But now Turkey is calling like, oh, the United States. Now Turkey is being a hypocrite because now United States are like, okay, you remember all these jihadists that we sponsored and paid for and weaponized? Turkey like, yeah, like, okay, now we need to attack those jihadists. And like Turkey is like, okay, and we're gonna use the Kurds to attack them. And Turkey is like, what the fuck, right? Like, I was with you all the way when it comes to funding terrorists, but not when it comes to the terrorists that I don't like, right? And now Turkey is pointing out that United States might be finding our terrorists and rebranding them, even though Turkey itself was doing that with Al Qaeda groups, right? So I completely understand the hypocrisy here, but I also understand that, yeah, compared to a lot of people in the region, the Kurds are on average, they are a lot better. They are a lot more secular. They're a lot more democratic. A lot more blah 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 blah. But this whole idea of them being romanticized in a way that people people do deny Ali. You say the fact that they're tied to the PKK. Okay, people do deny the fact that the Kurds, right now Turkey is
the PKK is the Kurds. I mean, it's the same.
No, it's not
the PKK. Okay.
No, they're
just to clear it up. The PKK. I know they're different, but it's a rebel faction in Turkey that has been trying to get an independent Kurdistan, right, for like almost 40 years, right, or 40 years or something like that. They've been doing that. They've been fighting. They've been doing attacks, and for them, it's one of those classic situations, right? It's like from them, their point of view, it's sort of independence. From Turkey's point of view, it's a mutiny and an insurgency. And this conflict has been going on for a long time, so of course they're going to be tied to the PKK.
No,
right? The Kurdish.
It's more than just being tied. It's more than just being tied. It's more the fighters just move in between them as if they're the same. Fighters between YPG and PKK, they move in between each other as if they're the same. They have the same command structure. The YPG.
The YPG and the PKK.
Yeah, and the YPG when they're celebrating, they have the pictures of the PKK leader who is in prison right now in Turkey. They use those pictures as a celebration. When PKK wins something, the YPG members celebrate that. When YPG wins something, the PKK members celebrate that.
No, but the YPG are Kurds in Syria,
Northern Syria.
Mostly.
Yeah, but I'm saying.
Hold on. They're mostly the Kurds in Syria, ethnic Kurds in Syria, and the PKK are pretty much all ethnic Kurds in Turkey, and they all want an independent Kurdistan, don't they?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that the lines between them is more blurry than people make it seem like. It's not like, oh, I'm from Northern Syria, so I'm YPG. No, the fighters between them just move between them.
No, they're virtually the same thing. That's why I'm saying what you're saying.
Okay.
I mean, they're virtually they are the same thing because they are the YPG and the PKK in all are Kurds who live in Syria or Turkey who want an independent Kurdish state. All of them. So whatever forces
you're acknowledging
trying to suppress that, whether it's Assad, whether it's ISIS. Sorry, go ahead.
And you're acknowledging that the YPG is this linked to a terrorist group. That's what you're acknowledging.
Well, no. My question is, I think that this is a question about. I honestly, I can't say anything about this because I don't know enough about this. But I know that the PKK is a sort of a rebel insurgent group of ethnic Kurds that is trying to gain independence.
The PKK is so, nobody that I know of denies that the PKK is a terrorist group. They murdered innocent children.
No, I acknowledge that they have links. Yes, absolutely.
So we acknowledge that the PKK is a terrorist group, and we acknowledge that the YPG has ties to the PKK. Right?
That's the only thing. This is where I have an issue with the. Yeah. Okay, so I'll tell you something, and this is going to make me very unpopular. I have a problem with the word terrorist being used in places where it should be called insurgent. For instance,
okay, whatever you want to call it, the labeling doesn't matter. They kill innocent civilians on a massive scale. Okay,
yes,
they're just
that's bad. Like I think that the Palestinian insurgents, I think they're insurgents. I think it's pretty bad because they also kill innocent people in their suicide bombings and everything, and the Hamas. But I think that terrorist is something like Al Qaeda going off.
I don't care about the labeling. I care about they're bad.
It's an occupation in your own land.
Okay, they're just the baddies. Can we call them the baddies?
I don't think we. I think that it's got to be more nuanced than that. I think that when they're a lot of
Oh my god.
countries were formed by
Okay,
people having armed
by
rebellion against the insurgents who
if
were
you
oppressing them.
consider the ISIS to be bad, what I'm telling you is that the PKK has done worse to Turkish civilians than ISIS has ever done to Western civilians. Okay, that's on a
Yeah,
much bigger scale, right?
yeah.
So,
There's no.
and
I am. Yeah,
even the Kurds
that part
in
of it.
another thing is that in the Kurds, and one thing else that people don't talk about, another hypocrisy, for example, is that right now we know that what Turkey is trying to do is Turkey is trying to use this Syrian refugees in Turkey as a way to change the demographics in northern Syria to make it more Arab, right? Which is very smart, by the way. If they are smart, but the key is in execution. So even if it's smart, we'll see if they can execute that, right? But the what we can't deny is that the Kurds were doing so. That's horrible. We're like, what the hell? You're re-engineering an entire area. You're basically doing a demographic cleansing of northern Syria. But guess what? And everybody is pointing out to that and calling that horrific. But the Kurds were doing the same thing. This is something that even Amnesty International acknowledges. Um,
Mhm.
Amnesty International acknowledges that the Kurds were replacing, once they managed to become autonomous thanks to the war in Syria, thanks to the ISIS uprising and everything, the territory that they became more autonomous in, and some areas that became even autonomous in that they didn't even control before, they were removing the Arabs from that area. They were demolishing their houses. The Kurds in northern Syria were doing that. People don't acknowledge that. Do you acknowledge that? Wait, you're not paying
Uh,
attention.
I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry, I was looking at the Patreon thing. Someone was saying that the PKK is not Kurds, but that's not really true. The Kurdistan Workers' Party is the
Yeah.
PKK.
Okay.
That's literally
Pay
what
more
they are.
attention to what I'm saying, because because that's not true. Who's saying that?
Huh?
Okay. Okay.
Chris.
What are you
But
talking?
it's okay. No, sorry, not Chris. Chuck.
Chuck, what are you saying?
Someone named Chuck is
Okay.
saying that. Yeah. So, the thing is, yeah, I don't know. I think this, when you said, my only problem with everything that you're saying, I'm not talking like, the PKK, the YPG, the fact that they have like workers like, members going within each other and all that stuff.
Mm.
The fact that the Kurds have done a lot of bad stuff as well within their own thing, and in terms of the insurgency, that's one thing. But I don't. The only thing that I'm hesitant about whenever we're talking about anything in the Middle East or that region is calling one side the baddies and the other side. I don't know about that, and I can't claim to know.
Well, there are no. But
Who
here's the
is
Okay, sorry.
no
Continue.
because no because you have, look, you have Assad, and we're talking about how we had this obsession. The U.S. had this obsession to take out Assad. They had an obsession to take out Assad for many reasons. They're supported by Iran, and then Assad also had killed 500,000 people,
Mm.
of his own people. And then you had all of these other rebel factions, and then there was Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda had killed a whole bunch of people. Who is the baddies in this? You have Turkey, and
Everyone.
Turkey has been, huh?
I make it easy for you. Who's the
That's what
baddie?
I know.
Okay. Who's
No, but
that?
I know you
The
said
easy.
that. Do
The
you
easy.
agree that the PKK
Hmm.
are baddies? When you were saying that, do you agree that the PKK are terrorists, are baddies? I don't. I think that they are a group that's fighting for an independent state. They've killed a lot of innocent people. It's really messy. Turkey is an asshole. A lot of the PKK, with the stuff that they've done, is that they're assholes in a lot of ways. But what it comes down to right now, right, is that when we're talking about the betrayal of the Kurds, the people who are fighting ISIS and the people who are being bombed by Turkey in northern Syria, right, and the betrayal of them by removing all of the troops at a time when the U.S. knew, well, in this case, Trump, the U.S. was actually trying to get Abu Bakr Al Baghdadi, but Trump actually knew that they were closing in on it. And the own military personnel, the U.S.'s own military personnel, said that interfered. The fact that they pulled them out, that was actually very risky for getting the Baghdadi operation. In that
Okay.
sense, I
That's
think it was a betrayal. I think the fact that they
That's
had
a
a big
very
part to
small
play
thing
was,
compared to
as far as
the bigger picture, though. Okay,
but the bigger picture, everything is there's states fighting for independence, and there's other states that are trying to push them down, and it really depends on what you look at. It feels a lot like the Israel-Palestine thing, right? Like they label all of the Palestinians who attack Israel terrorists. What they do is terrible. It's inexcusable. You should not kill innocent people. It doesn't matter what. But when the U.S. went into Iraq and the people who were going and attacking all the U.S. soldiers, they weren't terrorists; they were insurgents, right?
It
Because
doesn't matter. That's
it's
just
the place where they
semantics.
lived.
That's just semantics.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's very different.
Okay.
Terrorism and insurgency are very different.
Yeah. Okay. No.
Insurgency
No.
is.
Let me.
Hold on. Let me just say. Let me
No,
just finish
I
this.
agree. I agree with what you're saying, but
Insurgency.
yeah.
No, but let me just say this because I have to say it for my own clarity. Insurgency is often doing bad things for a cause that has some sort of rationale to it. Terrorism is to go somewhere else and just fuck with other people, and it doesn't have rationale because nobody's really attacking your land or anything like that, and going over somewhere else and messing with
Okay.
people because of just purely because of an ideology. But insurgency, even if you kill innocent people and even if you do really, really bad things, it's done by groups who are protecting their own land, or they think that they're protecting their own
I
land.
don't
think
care
that's
what the
different.
justifications are. At the end of the day, these are a group that killed a whole bunch of innocent people. Okay, that's what I'm.
Yes.
And when you say, okay, so
But everybody
let me simplify it for people that say like, oh, it's so hard to say who's the goodies and who's the baddies. Okay, there are no goodies. Okay, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, it's actually very easy. Everybody has, all sides have committed some horrific crimes. Okay, some very horrific crimes. Like there is no one here with a clean hand. Okay, and the interesting thing is that almost every group has funded and used terrorist groups. All of these sides, right? But what I'm telling you is that for United States, it made strategic sense. Like, okay, so the fact that the betrayal of YPG is going to become very costly to the United States. Of course, it's going to be very costly. Like, a handshake with the United States it means nothing to a lot of people now. It's worthless. Like, this is going to have cost for the United States many years to come, right? But a betrayal of Turkey is also very costly to the United States, even more costly to the United States, right? Betrayal of Turkey, and it makes strategically. It's strategically. Strategically.
Play this out for me. What is the betrayal of Turkey specifically? So there is so here's the thing, that Turkey knows, right, that the U.S. is working with the Syrian Kurds, right, to fight against ISIS, and they've really helped them in that regard. Turkey doesn't like them, but Turkey has always known that the U.S. has that interest. Now, when the U.S. leaves, the U.S. says to Turkey, okay, listen, we're leaving. We know you don't like the Kurds, but these guys have really helped us. You're our ally. They're our ally. Don't mess with them. And then Turkey goes ahead and starts bombing them. That is not, I mean, what is new in that? Where is the betrayal? When there was
Turkey
an understanding
was never
ahead of
okay
time?
with that. Turkey was always saw United States
Right.
allying
So
with the YPG as a major betrayal. Okay,
so it's
and
not a
Turkey.
betrayal. It's not a betrayal. It's something
Let
that
me.
they didn't like.
No.
Yeah, but
This is Turkey is being pushed in the arms of, uh, Russia and Iran, more and more. Right, Turkey becoming a major NATO ally that the United States always relied on as a major as a major launching ground for United States operations. This is a country that you're talking about a country that is one of the top 20 economies in the world. You're comparing them to a local.
Sure.
You're calling
A
it to a
NATO
local.
ally.
You're comparing them to a local insurgent group, right? Obviously,
I'm not.
strategically.
No.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about in terms of betrayal. Betrayal is when you have an understanding with somebody,
Right.
and
They
then
did. The betrayal was
you
this.
make a U-turn.
Mhm.
And no, listen, and you make a U-turn on it.
Right.
Okay, with Turkey, Turkey may not have liked what the U.S. was doing with them,
Oh,
but there was no understanding that
ooh,
the
there
U.S.
was,
did a
there
U-turn
was,
on
there was a major
suddenly.
U-turn. There was a major sudden U-turn. The strategy in Syria with United States and Turkey, they were on board with this, right? They were Turkey and United States both funded terrorist groups
Hmm.
in Syria because they were both obsessed with taking out Assad. Okay, and both Turkey and United States made a major U-turn. Okay, at some point, um, all the terrorist groups that United States were funding became ISIS and other problems, and United States made a major U-turn in focusing on them using the Kurds, and that U-turn was a very shocking to Turkey, and they saw it as a major betrayal. Okay, Turkey also did a major U-turn, and that has to do more with Turkey's internal politics. Okay, because again, this is a hypocrisy of Turkey. I'm gonna now attack Turkey a bit because people might think I'm too pro Turkey. So let me spend some time attacking Turkey.
You think?
Let me attack Turkey. So Turkey pretends like, oh, if you even talk to anything close to PKK, Turkey pretends like, oh my God, you have committed the worst crime ever. You're betraying Turkey. You're not to be trusted, right? But what they don't tell you now is that Erdogan initially wanted to talk to PKK, and it was involved. They were in the middle of coming up with a peace agreement with the PKK. So they keep telling other people to stop dealing with the PKK, even though Turkey itself was coming up with a peace agreement with the PKK. Right? Turkey from its very foundations had, from the very beginning since Ataturk, had a non used to have like a non-interventionist attitude. Like you wanted to be friendly with everybody, with its neighbors, you know. And Erdogan originally seemed to have the same attitude. It wanted to become friendly with the PKK. Like let's figure this out. We could become, we could stop fighting, and it wasn't as hostile against the Kurds as it was now. Then what changed? What made the what they in Syria, for example, Turkey was again more against Assad than it was concerned about the Kurds at some point. But what made Turkey do a U-turn? Do you know what made Turkey do a U-turn on that?
No, what made Turkey do a
Their
U-turn on that?
economy went to shit. Okay, and Erdogan's popularity and his party's popularity was going down. Okay,
Yeah.
and he kept on losing elections after elections. Right. So what do you do when you're losing elections and your party is losing popularity? What do you do? You focus on
Um.
an external enemy to unite, to
Yeah.
fearmonger. That's the tactic that everybody uses whenever they're losing popularity, and often it works, and it works with Turkey. It works with Turkey as well. I mean, it's worked a little bit. We'll see, and that thing actually became that switch became even faster when the Kurds started winning elections in Turkey. Even though Erdogan kept getting re-elected, he kept on losing power and popularity, right? So Turkey had to, Erdogan's party had to get united with the nationalist group in Turkey, like to make a majority government and stuff. And they were very, very anti-Kurdish. And even ever since then, also because it's good politics to focus on an enemy and demonize an enemy and go on an offense, and also because of this unity with the nationalist government in Turkey, made Turkey become extremely anti-Kurdish and take a much more hostile and more military position against Kurds, not just in Turkey but also in Syria. So Assad became a secondary. Remember how anti-Assad Erdogan used to be? That now became a secondary issue. Now the Kurds became so the Kurds, Turkey also made a U-turn. So yeah, the U-turn was there both from the United States and from Turkey. And again,
But
this is
it
yeah.
doesn't seem the acute betrayal. Like when you talk about an acute betrayal, like this idea that the and someone mentioned this here too. The Sinjar Massacre, right? Like the Sinjar Massacre was when there were Yazidis, and the ISIS was basically just killing them and kidnapping them, and they were trapped, and they were surrounded. It was there were 50,000 of them that were evacuated. He was saying that the PKK killed 40,000, but the PKK and the YPG, they got together and they actually saved like 50,000 Yazidis and helped them get evacuated from that area. I mean, there's a lot of these things. A lot of the Kurds have been at the forefront of helping the U.S. right when it's fighting ISIS. They've been at the forefront of defeating ISIS. They played a key role in getting Baghdadi killed. I mean, the U.S. acknowledges this. I understand that. I know what you're saying, and yes, there may have been. Of course, they did bad things, and the PKK's done bad things for 40 years, and all of that stuff. But ultimately, like that's the problem. The problem is that there was an acute betrayal, like a very overt, surprising thing that shocked everybody. I mean, Darko in the Patreon chat, or in the live chat, sorry, is saying that so is Trump not the U.S. now, because I talked about Trump versus the U.S. But the thing is, in this case, when he pulled those troops out of Syria and he kind of left the Kurds to get bombed by Turkey for the next 5 days, hey, what the U.S., including the Republicans, including the Democrats, including all of the military generals, were saying that this is a terrible move. We're betraying the Kurds who helped us. We're betraying them. We're betraying them. It was a very, very clear thing. And Trump was completely at odds with what you would call, quote, the U.S. So they were completely different.
You shouldn't trust
right?
the generals.
And there's not,
Ali, the generals. Okay, first of all. Okay, sorry. Finish
I'm not just a general. Just one thing I said. I'm saying basically, everybody thought that because it was. I mean, everybody who saw it, I thought it was shocking. Yeah, when the U.S. and it's not just that, Armin. I mean, like when the U.S. saw, when you see what they did to Turkey, and Turkey doesn't like this, and Erdogan's going off on one end, and he's not really making the U.S. happy, and they've had this conflict and all this stuff. It's not an acute betrayal, but it is an acute betrayal when somebody has been assisting you in your main sort of national security interest in the region, and then you just cut and run out of there. And not only do you cut and run out of there, but you leave them there.
Who's denying that nobody is denying that the United States betrayed the Kurds? I'm just saying that
when you say that, yes, when you say that Turkey, there was a betrayal of Turkey and the betrayal of the Kurds, as if they're both the same. I just don't think.
I didn't say the same, but it
okay.
Is,
then we're fine.
But it is a betrayal. How could it not be a betrayal? Okay, imagine if Turkey went and funded a Baghdadi, and like, oh, Baghdadi is our guy now, and we're gonna fund him, right? I think a lot of people will see that's Turkey's betrayal of its Western allies, right? This is what it looks like to Turkey when you go and fund the Kurds, sorry. So. I mean, you could say it does not a betrayal, it's a betrayal, whatever you want to call it.
Who's betraying who? Like, Turkey's like, you're like, okay, well, Turkey, here we are, we're trying to take out ISIS. This is what we want to do. We're fighting against this, this guy. This guy's been killing people all across Europe, all across the U.S. and everything, and now we want to kind of take him out. And here you are,
and you're misunderstanding.
You're fighting against the people who are trying to fight us.
Nobody was trying to take out ISIS. Okay, I could tell you. Nobody was trying to take out ISIS. You keep saying like, oh, the Kurds were helping the United States take out ISIS, or this and stuff. Everybody wanted ISIS to remain. Almost everybody wanted ISIS to stay in Syria.
I don't know, Armin. I don't know.
Okay, let me tell you. What this is pretty obvious. Okay, I mean.
I don't think it's that obvious.
Okay. Let me tell you.
The first power is saying that everyone betrayed everyone else. That I agree with. Everyone betrayed everyone else.
Can I just tell you?
Yeah,
okay,
finish,
so
sorry. Yeah.
From 2000 so ISIS took over Raqqa when? 2014? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No, from 2014. Yeah, so and it just rolled. So they
2014 ISIS is sort of peak years, yeah.
Yeah, 2014. Yeah, so they just did, and they just went. That's the same year that they just rolled into Iraq like it was no one's business, and they just kept on taking territory, and everybody was like, "What the hell," right? When did the major defeats of ISIS was 2017, right? So in less than 5 months, all the major ISIS centers was recaptured, right? All of, like Raqqa, like Ali, because you're saying that this is
I
not
am.
that
I'm
obvious.
paying
Okay,
attention. I'm
so this is
listening.
important, right?
I
So in
promise you, I'm listening
5
to you.
months,
Yeah.
they lost all their main cities, right? And then from December 2017 till more than a year after, up until even recently, right? ISIS was just like in this very tiny area, like a couple of villages and towns. After 5 months of completely destroying all their cities, all of a sudden, the the United States and the Kurds and everybody stopped fighting. They stopped fighting. They had a little bit more territory ISIS left. That honestly, within half a day, they could have just bombed. They could have just taken that part. It took them 5 months to take out all the major cities of ISIS, but it took them more than a year, and they left all these villages under ISIS territory. Why did they leave those villages under ISIS control? Why? Like, can you come up with? Can you tell me why wouldn't they just not move in and finalize the whole thing? Why did everybody stop fighting ISIS?
I don't know,
I
Armin,
will.
but that doesn't
I'll tell
mean
you.
that it's
Okay,
because they wanted to keep a part of
because
them.
Ali, United States has no business staying in Syria if ISIS was not there. United States had no business staying in Syria if ISIS was not there. Okay? This is pretty obvious to me. Okay, the Kurds didn't want United States to live. United States didn't want it to live. Nobody wanted. Even United States enemies didn't want United States to leave. Okay, they need to be like, we need to keep a little bit of ISIS, just a little bit of tiny little bit of ISIS, just here in the corner. Just put it in
But
the
it
shelf
doesn't.
and lock
United
it.
States doesn't work that way.
Are you
They don't
serious? It
work
does
that way.
exactly how it
U.S.
works.
Armin, U.S. troops they can stay wherever the hell they want to. They've done it throughout history. They are still in North Korea. In South Korea. They're still in Germany. They're still in Saudi Arabia. Even after all the wars are gone, they're like, we're just staying here, and people don't complain. Like, in fact, like when they're like,
Oh,
okay, we're
oh
leaving,
yeah.
then it's an issue. They don't.
Are you? No,
You
it's not
don't
that
have to
simple.
leave.
If that
Hold on,
you
hold on.
do, you can't,
But
like, if
no, but that's what I'm
when
saying. It's not simple.
no, it's very okay. It's not very simple. And United States, as much as people want to believe, United States just can't decide to stay somewhere. It's not that simple. Okay, when people blame, again, this is something I defend
But
Obama on.
they
Right? When United States left Iraq, they had no choice but to leave Iraq. Okay, so that's something that I don't criticize Obama for. Right? A lot of people say, "Oh, why did you leave Iraq?" Well,
that's
because
sure.
you
But
were.
the thing is, the idea.
Hmm.
Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
go. You go
Finish.
ahead.
I'm saying the idea that you would leave ISIS in a few villages and everything just because you want an excuse to stay. The United States, that is just not precedent. The U.S. has never needed an excuse to stay anywhere, especially anywhere in the Middle East.
That's
They
not
have a
true.
presence everywhere.
That is so
No
not
one,
true.
Armin, no one cares.
Are,
Like, they don't care. They're like, okay, yeah, we're gonna stay.
are you
We're gonna stay
serious?
here because we have to
No,
continue.
are you, man,
You
United
don't
States.
have to do that.
No, United States loses elections, wins elections, loses Congress.
You're giving the U.S. too much credit. You're giving them too much credit.
You're giving them too
Like
much
the
credit. You're talking about the country that
no,
funds.
I'm saying I'm actually painting them as bigger. This is the fight of who's more anti-American. I'm actually telling you that they're bigger. That they are willing to stay in places and say we're just going to stick around without any reason. You're saying that they want to at least make it seem okay for everybody around them that, hey, we're here because ISIS is still around in a couple of villages. I'm just saying that they don't need to do that. They're way more sort of might is right than that.
They admit to do.
Yeah. So I
if,
just don't think
if
that's a
that
strong.
if they didn't care about, if they didn't need at least their own media to be able to give them a narrative for why they're there, if they didn't care about that, they wouldn't constantly be rebranding terrorist groups and constantly working on the fact to sell idea. I mean, the idea to to at least to a Western content consumer that they're there for a good reason. They need that. They need that, and they have sold that. They have effectively sold that idea. They need to sell that idea, and they're very good at selling that idea. Again, this is about selling weapons. This is about having an excuse to constantly be involved in places where you don't need to be involved. Like again, um, I could tell you another thing. A lot of people are now worried about the fact that in Kurdish areas, that in places where the Kurds are leaving, and in places where the Kurds are now more focused on Turkey rather than keeping ISIS prisoners, that ISIS prisoners are now going to be let loose, and oh no, ISIS is going to come back, okay, because of the fact that
Yeah.
right. But the interesting thing is that the United States president in Syria has led a lot more to the rise of ISIS than a few hundred prisoners being let loose. Okay, like honestly, the fact is that United States should have been never been there, and it should have never allied with any groups, including YPG. It shouldn't have funded the terrorists. It shouldn't have. Oh, the longer the United States was there, the more it's kind of like a infection that keeps spreading. You need to just get out again. But I'm not defending Trump's way of again. Now it's going to look like I'm defending Trump's method of leaving. The fact that Trump left, I think, is a good thing. The way that he didn't even leave. He just moved them from one area to another. Like,
Well, I
oh
mean, they're all back in there.
yeah, they're
They're
there.
back there. That was the thing today. That a lot of them are actually going back. For like, and they're not even making a big
No,
secret
but
about it.
even
So
when
essentially,
they were
yeah.
leaving, they were just moving from one part of Syria to another part of Syria, and some of them were going to Iraq. So nobody was leaving, right? So that's nonsense. Another thing is that the way that you should have left, the way that it would have been more strategic to leave is you bring United Nations peacekeepers. This would have been so ideal, right? I'm in favor of United
Hmm.
States pulling out. The way that it should have been done, and like, listen, if United States, if U.S. soldiers are not there, Turkey is good. Is a lot easier for Turkey to commit, um, human crimes against the Kurds, right? It's just could just indiscriminately just shoot wherever it was because the United States soldiers are not there. But so Turkey, the U.S., even though United States has very few personnel there, that very tiny group was enough to hold Turkey back. And what would have had the same effect would have been United Nations peacekeepers. If they were there when United States was pulling out, they would have had the same effect. It would have really helped protect the Kurdish people against the Turkish onslaught, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Another thing that United States should have done before pulling out is to help come up with a negotiation between the Kurds and Assad, because just by announcing it and doing the pullout, like coming just instead of doing a surprise pullout, just be like, hey, we're pulling out in 2 months. And there's nothing you can do about it. We're pulling out in 2 months or something like that. If you give the Kurds that signal, they would have had a time to have an upper. Right now, you're pushing the Kurds back to the arms of Assad, right? Because it's very interesting because the Kurds, which was being, again, the Kurds were not against Assad. That was not their main target. That was the United States' main target. ISIS was not United States' main target. Assad was United States' main target, right? So the Kurds were convinced and pushed to being anti-Assad. But now that United States is leaving, the Kurds are like, you know what? We're Syrian now. Assad, can you come protect us against the Turks because we're desperate, right? And Assad. The people that are really winning here is Assad, is Russia, and it's Iran, right? So
That I agree with.
yeah, Assad has now a major upper hand here because but the Kurds are desperate for anybody to protect them, right? But if you had come up with a timetable, I think that the Kurds would have a upper hand, will be able to come up with a deal with Assad from a position of greater strength. So again, that's another thing.
Yeah. So like, as Bill Maher said the other night on a show, he's like, usually people are happy when Trump pulls out,
Oh
but
my god.
anyway. It's that.
Yeah.
So okay, so I want to move on to what's happening next. So I'm really curious to know. So when Bin Laden died, when Obama killed Bin Laden, and when he got him, right? Then there was this lot of celebration. There was this whole thing that it's going to be a major. It was a major thing.
Mm.
It really sort of started the death knell for Al Qaeda, and Al Qaeda got greatly diminished after that. It got enormously weakened. None of the successors, or his sons, or Ayman al-Zawahiri, really had the same kind of cult of personality that Bin Laden did. Right? And there was a lot of demoralization, and we kind of saw that happen. But then, through the ashes of that, through the ashes of Al Qaeda in Iraq, Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, and then later on the rise of Abu Bakr al Baghdadi and all this, and ISIS, um, came a wholly different monster that made Al Qaeda essentially look like kindergartners. But ISIS was a little different from Al Qaeda, in which they were more interested in making an Islamic state. They were more interested in sort of having a caliphate, whereas Al Qaeda was more interested in attacking the West. ISIS didn't have that priority, even though they did carry out a lot of attacks, but they said that they did it defensively. They carried out more attacks on fellow Muslims, on Shias, on Christians, on apostates and blasphemers, and people within their own ranks, because their interest was in the establishment. That Baghdadi's gone. What do you think happens now? Do you think this actually is a sort of diminishing of Islamic terrorism overall?
No.
Do you think it's in vogue anymore, or what do you think? And this is totally speculative. What do you think the next picture, the next iteration of it looks like, and where do you see it coming from?
Well, actually, here's the thing. I don't know, and anybody that tells you they know what's going to happen next is talking out of there, whatever. But I can.
Yeah, we didn't know about
Well,
ISIS either, really. So
one thing we could know is that it seems to be it seemed to be moving into uh, an new era of uprisings and protests, right? And this seems to
Mhm.
be a global thing, right? But the nature of these protests and the nature of these uprisings is very hard to predict, because there's going to be, because we seem to go we're going to be going into a time of economic stagnations, and that's when protests. This is why we're saying right now we're seeing protests on a global scale from countries that don't seem to be connected in any way, right? Because it's happening, right? um, but usually when people have economical grievances, these protests, the nature of these protests lead to end up being less sectarian, but sectarian groups will try to take advantage of the unrest and how effectively, and to bring their own branding of uprising and take advantage of the fact that people are not happy and the fact that people want change. Even if the origins are not sectarian, this will be a moment for a lot of sectarian groups to move in and try to put their own branding on the fact that people are not happy, and on the protests, on the uprisings, right? And again, we don't know how effective they're going to be. Some, that really is going to be depending on groups like Hezbollah, groups like Iran, how much Turkey wants to continue in its religious branding. But origins of it is, like if you look at what's happening right now in Lebanon and in Iraq, there's a lot of uprising happening there, and even on when there was protests happening there, it didn't seem to be sectarian. It seemed to be secular. It seemed to be like, we're all again together. We're all, again for change. We want change. But again, let it, if they pick up, if they become more popular and more people join, it might become sectarian. Like we have history of this. Like in Iran, for example, when you had the 1979 revolution, originally it wasn't an Islamic revolution, right? But it became an Islamic
yeah,
revolution, right? So that's why you don't know if,
it's like all the rebel factions in Syria
right.
that were full of like all kinds of people. including secular forces, and then eventually it's the Islamic aspect that wins out.
But it might also turn good if the secular groups or of the humanist groups, if the people that stand for human rights manage to steal these uprisings and put their branding on it. We also have a history. This could become the Middle East's age of enlightenment, because this is what happened. When you have economic downturn, that's when human rights campaigns and stuff like that become more and more popular, because people's dissatisfaction that will lead into change, asking for change. But then who takes over all these movements is going to be the key factor on whether it's going to move into a good direction or in a bad direction. The problem right now is that we seem to be at an era where all these uprisings are going to go start and become more popular and bigger, but the people, like, we might in Europe, when we had an age of enlightenment, because of all the unrest and because of all the people being dissatisfied, we had a whole bunch of philosophers, thinkers that made those ideas popular, and those ideas were, right before the uprising, those ideas were right there up for grabs. And because they were popular, all of a sudden these uprisings managed to use and gain those brandings. But now, unfortunately, we're not in a place where fighting for humanism or fighting for human rights and all that good stuff doesn't have that popularity that it had coming right after World War II. Like, right after World War II, it seemed to be the whole world was mobilized to, never again, don't forget, coming up with the international organizations like the United Nations, like International Human Rights Tribunal. It seemed like the whole world was mobilized to be like, we stand for human rights on a global scale, right? And we're going to make this the new standard. Now it seems like that's not as popular as anymore. Like, we have like concentration camps in China, and people are being like treated like second-class citizens, like in India, and it doesn't seem to be bothering people on a global scale as much as sensitive as, like, right now when it comes to World War II and the crimes of Holocaust. It seems like people, the message from that has now, instead of never again, is like, just be sensitive only about the Holocaust, right? That's the only thing you're sensitive about. You're not sensitive about similar things that might happen in other places. Like, we saw that with Rwanda. Like, happened, and people just started paying attention when it was too late, right? So it just seemed like the message that we got out of Holocaust is just don't say sensitive things about the Holocaust, but hey, other human rights violations, it was the message that we were supposed to get out of it is like, let's make this not happen again anywhere else. But now we have concentration camps back, like, and nobody seems to be bothered by that as
we do,
right? And the reason, I think, and this is also the reason why this is not as popular as it used to be, is because human rights, the branding of human rights was misused by a lot of Western countries as a weapon to get to, became a meme even, like using bombing in countries to bring democracy to them. So instead of being hypocrites, like saying, oh, we want to United States and other Western countries, like, saying stuff against Iran's human rights violations, and yet being so close to Saudi Arabia, and not calling their human rights violations, and even putting them on the top of the human rights tribunal. So, like, these hypocrisies made it very obvious that human rights, democracy, secularism, these are just buzzwords that Western countries use very selectively and only when it's in their interest. And because it became so apparent that that's how they're using it, people lost interest in promoting these ideas, right? Because of the misuse. And that's why these brandings are now ruined. And now that we need them the most, we're not really in a position to, now that these uprisings are happening, it's hard to use them. Even though we see tiny little bits of hope somewhere. Like, we see, like, for example, in Iraq, there was one protest where people were saying neither Sunni, neither Shia, secularism. That is great, but the thing is that our atheists from our side, they take that and they exaggerate how big of a deal that was, because most of the protest is not about that. Even though we find some examples of that, most of it is not that. And who's going to be able to? Well, we hope more of it will become like that. We hope that we could move in and put our, these kind of brandings on these protests. But maybe the Islamists, the Sunnis, and the
Hmm.
Shias, maybe they're in a stronger position to come up and they put their own branding on it. We'll see. In Lebanon, for example, right now people are
Yeah.
tired of sectarianism. They don't want any of that branding. So let's. But again, but we don't know. Maybe Hezbollah will become successful. We need to have another live stream when I have better internet about
About the
the
strikes
the
and
strikes,
all
the
the
protests.
protests.
And guys, again, sorry that I had to a place with the with crappy internet. Is because there was an earthquake here, and my internet got disconnected. I have really fast internet at my place, but I had to move today because earthquake disconnected my internet, so I had to move here. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Um.
So you
Yeah.
recorded all of
So
this, right?
it just
You recorded all of this.
yes, I did,
Okay.
which was a good decision in retrospect. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, that's we're gonna. Yeah, this is a really interesting thing. I'm curious to see how things go from here. I still can't get over the fact that Abu Bakr Al Baghdadi was chased down a tunnel, and then he took out of his 12 or 13 kids, he took 3 of them in with him, and he detonated himself and killed them as well. I guess when you think that you're going to heaven, you're like, oh, I'm taking my kids to heaven with me. But
So Ali,
yeah,
do you know my audio was recorded as well from your side?
from my side, everything was clean.
Yeah, but you
So
recorded
this
my
video is
audio
going to
as
be clean.
okay. Oh, so you recorded
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
video as
recorded the whole call.
you recorded the video as
I
well.
recorded the video and the audio. Yeah,
Oh.
because this video on YouTube is not going to be very good because buffering a lot because of the connection. So this is a clean version of the video
Mm.
that we're going to be able to put up. So
Okay.
yeah, I think we can kind of wrap up because we're getting some technical issues.
Okay.
Do you want to go through a couple of quick patron questions?
Sure.
There aren't. Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, from viewer questions because I think that live stream is kind of dead now. Actually, let's just take 2. Okay, so. Well, see, it's really a lot of the commentary. People are just really talking about it. Beej is asking, what do you think of some saying that the killing of Baghdadi has made the world less safe from ISIS?
I think that's an exaggeration of again. I think the killing of Baghdadi was significant, but I think that's an
Hmm.
exaggeration. How so?
I mean, I agree with you. I think it's an exaggeration. I know why people think that. They think, oh, okay, you killed them, and now that's going to piss off even more people. And now they're going to fight really harder, and ISIS is going to come back bigger than before. It's kind of what they said after Bin Laden,
Wait, like
and it
as if
never
they're not,
happened.
as if they before they weren't pissed off before. Like,
Yeah,
I don't think you could piss them off anymore
there's a
than.
that when people said this, they're like, Bin Laden, killing Bin Laden is going to make this monster rise again, and it's going to come back stronger than ever before, and it just doesn't work out that way. I mean, once you decapitate them, then often there's so much demoralization, and there's so much, and it's not really like they were at their high point when you killed a guy.
Hmm.
It's not like they were at their peak. They were already diminished and completely, virtually entirely decimated before that happened. So
Hmm.
I don't think that that's a good argument at all. I want to ask you something, Armin, considering everything that you were talking about over here with ISIS and the U.S.'s role in funding, Al Qaeda related groups in Syria and so on. What do you say to those people? People who say, "Well, ISIS was America's creation, and essentially America created ISIS." Do they have? Do you? Okay, I'm not going to say do they have a point because obviously America did not create ISIS, but do you see where they're coming from?
Well, I mean, there was a whole bunch of things that led to ISIS. It wasn't. I mean, I don't. It was Islam.
Yes. Yeah.
It was the United States. It was a sectarian divide between Sunnis and Shias. If anybody wants to make it just as if it was one of these things, they're wrong. It was all of them,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So, but I think people's focus on which one it is based on their agenda and based on their side. Again, I try to provide a counter narrative to what a lot of people on our side say, just so that people have also the alternative views, right? Um, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people on our side only focus on the Islamic nature of, and the thing is that the fact is that it is Islam is to be blamed, because a lot of people that focus on the U.S. Aspect of it, right, or the Western influence that led to ISIS, they seem to deny the Islamic aspect of it, right? But the thing is that it's all of those, it's all of the above, right?
It's all those things, and we. By the way, I just want to say this: like neither Armin nor I, we don't really talk about this whole. We don't take sides on which side is more Islamic, which side is less Islamic. It really ultimately comes down to the reason that both of us are ex-Muslims is because we believe in fairness and we believe in justice. So you've heard Armin and me here talk a lot about what Armin feels very strongly about Yemen. Everybody who's getting killed in Yemen are Muslims, right? We've talked about the Uyghurs in China, the concentration camps that you're talking about. When we said like never again after the Holocaust, that wasn't just for. It was just you were never going to have this kind of thing happen again in general, and it is kind of happening in with the Uyghurs and the Holocaust and concentration camps. So there is not. It's not about which side is Islamic, which side is not. It really is a matter of what's just and what's fair.
I just want to point out that it's, this it's not. A lot of people think that we're going into the realms of conspiracy theories when we're talking about their major interests within the military industry in United States and other countries that are very much interested in prolonging these wars, right? And this is a known thing. This is not a conspiracy level thing, right? And the fact that these elements, the ones that make these decisions, are beyond Trump and Obama. These are things that are not forces within the U.S. government that are not democratically elected. They are just always there, and what they want usually goes, right. What they want ends up happening, but they do require some stability, right? They do require people not punishing politicians. It doesn't matter which politicians are winning, as long as the politicians are not being punished for making decisions that keeps them in these areas. So they do care about what stories are people saying in Western media, Ali. They do definitely care about that, and they do care about the branding of the group. They do. It's not like, oh, they could just go inside a country and just invade it and they don't care, like with no excuses, no narrative, no stories, and it's going to be just fine, and the international community is not going to react, or the American voters are not going to react. They can't just. No, they need their narratives. They need their stories. They need to spin it in a different, and they do that very well. They do that very effectively, and it sells. It seems like, and it's interesting thing is that their stories and their narratives seem to be the ones that both sides goes with. I don't know, but I honestly do think that you're both overestimating and underestimating these powers in the United States. I think
look, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I think that it is a difficult thing whenever we talk about conspiracy theories and all that, because then I always think of the Iran one. I always think of the overthrow of Mossadegh as that was amazing to me, right? That just plays like this conspiracy theory. Oh yeah, you know what? The British and the CIA got together and they overthrew our first democratically elected leader. No, well, it happened, and then they acknowledged it later on. It actually happened.
Right.
So it's it's a difficult thing, and I think that you're right. One of the biggest problems right now, Armin, I think, is that people have not only short memories, but since people are siloed and they get their own news from the certain news organizations that they feel agree with them, there is very little knowledge about what's happening around the world, especially since everything nowadays is about Trump's tweets, which are, by the way, hilarious, and which are I make no secret about how much I despise Trump. But since everything is about Trump's tweets, and that's everything that anyone focuses on, a lot of these stories are getting buried. People are not learning about them, and when people don't learn about them, it makes it easier for all of these powers to go in and get away with shit that they wouldn't otherwise dream of getting away with. Like they actually can get away with it because nobody's watching, and everything is a Twitter hashtag that lasts for 3 days. Like, remember the Save Our Girls or Bring Back Our Girls from Boko Haram? What happened with that after 3 days? Nobody knows, right? Like, I mean, well, people know. It's just that nobody's really been following it up after a while. The Iranian protests, whenever they happened, it's 3 or 4 days in the thing, and then after that, all of the and these governments know. Iran knew at the time. They're like, well, these protests are going to be in the news media for about 3 or 4 days, so let's just write it out, and then after that, once everybody's moved on to the next thing, then we can go around. We can really mess
Ali,
with people.
again, so just like the Mossadegh one that you mentioned, like the fact that United States funded and weaponized Al Qaeda groups in Syria, that is an undisputed fact. That's not something that is challenged, right? But how many American citizens know that, right? How many American citizens know the United States funded the people that attacked the Twin Towers at 9/11? Now, if you say that to an American citizen, a lot of them think that you're being a conspiracy theorist, right? A lot of people that think that you're just but that is not a disputed
But Armin,
thing.
that again, like, I think I agree it's not a disputed thing. I agree that the U.S. had a role in when Al Qaeda. You're saying that they funded the people who attacked on 9/11. Yes, the U.S. had a role in it's just the way when we the U.S. funded it. They funded it through oil money by buying money from Saudi Arabia, which the Saudis used to build madrasas all over the place, and then the students came out with the Taliban, and then the Taliban gave it.
This was a more direct.
But so that's what I'm saying. So I don't know about that. You might be well when it comes to the Iraq and Syria situation. Like, you're right. I just don't think that it was the kind of thing that, okay, these guys are associated with Al Qaeda, and we really want to keep Al Qaeda there, and that's why we want. I don't think it's that.
I didn't say that about. I didn't say that about Al Qaeda. I said it about ISIS.
I think it was choosing the lesser.
Al Qaeda was used against Assad. Okay, you're missing the points I'm saying. Al Qaeda was used. Groups affiliated with Al Qaeda was used against Assad. That was way before. That was way before ISIS was used to stay in Syria. That was way before.
Right, and before ISIS was properly ISIS, the ISIS that we know today.
Right.
Right. So I think that there's a lot of this has to do with the hindsight wasn't 2020. They had so Fareed Zakari actually wrote about this. He's like, we need to learn a lesson. It's like he says, we as in Americans, that arming or helping out the moderate side in any of these Middle Eastern conflicts is going to eventually come back and bite you in the ass. It always has. Whenever you think these are the moderate rebels and we're going to take their side, it never ever works out the way that you think it's going to work out.
But it's not supposed to work out. It actually is for the people with if you figure out the intentions of the main players, is working out perfectly. What you call biting us in the ass is exactly the excuse people need to stay there longer.
That's a part that I'm going to stay agnostic on.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know how much
of course,
of
everything
the 3D
here,
chess or everything that's involved in that.
Right.
Okay?
Well, let me give you a little bit of a broader picture about simplify things a little bit. Right now we have 3 major strategies when it comes to empire building, for lack of a better term, or for just meddling. I guess, right? We have 4 if you include Iran, but if you only look at superpowers, we have the United States model, we have the Russian model, and we have the Chinese model, right? So, the United States model is basically by providing security forces, like by military, which is the most expensive one, right? By by spending a ton of money and having a lot of very, very heavy military presence. And the reason why that model works for the United States is because it's not in the interest of the United States citizen or taxpayer, but it is in the interest of the people that are making these decisions. Because what we are calling an expense, they call it revenue. Okay, so like we feel like, oh, it's very expensive. Well, yeah, it's expensive to the U.S. taxpayer, but for the people that are making the decisions, for them this is revenue, right? So that's one model. So providing security, quote unquote security, and becoming a major player when it comes to being able to move heavy, major equipment, modern, expensive stuff that other countries will never even dream of being able to do, right? Then we have the Russian model. The Russian model involves in being friends with everybody and being able to have, like, Russia has managed to be allies with Iran and Israel at the same time, right? Being allies with the
Yeah, that's
allies
a
being allies with Turkey and Kurds at the same time. Like, how do you do that, right? So that makes you a major force that can um, pull levers on all sides and bring people together. And any negotiation seems to require Russia now, because that's the only group that is friends with every side. Like, United States managed to piss off the Kurds and Turkey at the same time, right? Like, everybody is angry with the United States right now, both Turkey and Kurds. But Russia, on the other hand, managed to remain close with the Kurds and Turkey at the same time. So that's
well,
amazing.
the greatest thing about
But
Russia when Obama drew that red line after the Syrian chemical weapons attack, and Obama said there's a red line, we're not going to allow it. Then eventually, the way that he was able to get out of it is because he's like, "Oh yeah, Russia said that they'll take care of it, they'll watch it, and they'll take care of the
so
Syria's
but
chemical weapons." So yeah,
but being able to do this, Russia now manages to become a major influence, or like a major decision maker in these countries, without with a fraction of the cost of United States, right? The fact that it could be an arbiter between different groups makes Russia a very important player in the region, right? If they continue being able to play that as effectively as they have, because they would never be able to spend as much as even at the astronomical levels of United States. China's model is the most interesting one. China's model is more of rather than a security guarantor, is more of an economic guarantor, right? So China's model is like, let's just go to Africa and here and in Pakistan and in other countries and just invest the shit of just keep lending money to everybody, and that's how they maintain a level of influence. And that could be the least expensive way to do it, because not only doesn't cost you anything, if you play your cards right, it might actually have a positive return on investment. So you gain both an influence in all of these countries, and you're not even spending anything. You're just investing. I don't know how good these investments are. I don't know if they're strategic. I don't know if they're going to have if they're going to have much of a positive return on investment. I think analyzing that would require experts and that's beyond the scope of this podcast. But it could potentially not have
yeah,
it potentially could have no cost to them, right? But that's China's model. So I think these are the three. And then if we could talk about Iran's model as well, which is more of an ideological way of exerting influence and empire building, but that's a different topic.
yeah, that's a different topic.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna close this down now because
Yeah.
we've had some trouble today. I mean, most of you who are listening to this in
Sorry, it's
your
been the earthquake.
podcast apps and everything,
I blame the earthquake.
yeah, you should be able to hear it clearly. But there was an earthquake, and there's something. Some of the people in the YouTube chat are saying that the increased amount of buffering has been because YouTube is biased against us,
No,
so
no,
we can
it's not.
claim,
It's my connection.
identity targeting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know.
But
So Armin's had to do a
we
different connection.
release this. We apologize for the technical difficulty again. I had
We
to move.
apologize for this. So people who want to catch up on it, yeah, we're gonna actually upload this video that I've recorded, which is going to be clean, and you'll be able to hear everything without any buffering issues. We're gonna upload this as the video. So
Right.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. And
Yeah.
anything else, Armin? You want to say
No.
before we go?
No. I'll when I publish this, well, let's make sure we tell people that this is the clean, non-buffering version. Hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah. So. Okay.
All right, that sounds good. We've got a lot of cool stuff lined up. This is near the end of October now that we're doing this, but a lot of cool stuff lined up for the upcoming month of November. We recently got in touch with the ex-Muslims of South Africa. There's a group of ex-Muslims in South Africa, so I think that'll be really, really interesting.
Oh yeah,
to hear from them. And yeah,
Darko is still with us.
And many other kind of fun
Shark
things.
is still with us. Some people stayed with us
guys,
through the buffering, so thank you, Doctor, whatever.
Yeah, thank you for everybody who kind of stuck it out. We know it must have been pretty frustrating, but anyway. I think this is probably the first time we've had this issue. So usually it's not like this for everybody who's new. Anyway, all right, man. We're gonna see you next time, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.